So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sharon Whiteman, and I am very privileged to be here every week with each and every one of you, whether you're live or later down the track, and my colleagues, Diana Hunter and Gary Knapp. We love gathering with you, bringing exceptional speakers from around the world and from Australasia, and today is no exception. We have Karen Dennis, a longtime friend and colleague, and we're kind of, I'm feeling a little bit rebellious. If anybody's looked around the world right now, there's a lot of polarization in opinions around health and well-being, put it diplomatically. And so let's just get some truth happening today, and no better person to partner with in that mission than Karen Dennis. I'll just give you a little bit about her background. Karen is a former nurse, the mother of 4 children and grandmother to 6. She studied nutrition and supplementation for many years and began her Manatech business in 2002. She reached the six-figure income level in just over 2 years and has earned many awards in the process. She's been Associate of the Year in 2008 and 2013, and she was in the top International Business Builders of the Year in 2007 and 2013. And in addition, has been in the top 5 Associates of the Year in 2008, 10, 12, 13, 14, 16, and 18. In 2012, she was a recipient of the Giving Spirit Award in Australasia and also inducted into the $1 Million Club, a prestigious group comprised of associates who have earned over $1 million in their Manatech businesses. She's an awesome wellness warrior and home business coach. Today, we'll be talking all about the extraordinary benefits of food-based supplements as a solution to the global terrain decline. We'll talk about that in more detail, and subsequent decreased food quality, secondary to depleted soils, modern farming techniques, environmental chemicals, and more. So really, this is a topic that you want everyone you love, if they can't be here live, we'll be available to share it with you via link, and everybody you love and care about needs this information. Sadly and unexplainedly and dystopian, it's not common knowledge, is it, Karen?
No, it isn't, unfortunately. Amazingly and surprisingly.
Exactly. So I'm also a retired nurse, and so Karen and I have that as a background. And I know, when I started with Manatech, I was, there's Diana. I'll just stop her camera just 1 second.
Oh, so good.
Diana, there we go. When I started with Manatech, I was unwell, and I was had just stopped nursing. I had to stop nursing due to health reasons, and I was sleeping, most of the day. And when somebody introduced this technology to me, I was so skeptical. And hey, Diana, there you go. Sometimes she uses the same login as me, as you can see. So she's trying to Diana has an appointment this morning. She's trying to get every minute of this talk before she goes out the door. So she's trying to join us. She'll have to listen to the recording. So I was unable to work. I was sleeping, 12 hours, half a day out of 24. And people that cared about me shared this, and I was so skeptical. But I've told this story a million times, but I can still remember sitting in the car and listening to what your topic today, that you're such an expert in, Karen, the fact that our food is not enough. And at that point, I made a decision. Even this technology, this nutrition technology, wasn't the whole solution to my health and well-being and recovery. It had to be the foundation, because if you don't handle that part of well-being, then nothing else will fix it. Drugs won't fix it, whatever other supplements, nothing will fix it unless you get the terrain aspect handled. So Karen, I know your family has a long history in this, and that you're sort of born into this and knew this almost cellularly. Tell us about that.
About my family history, you mean?
Yeah. I love that story.
Do you mean prior to Manatech? I mean, my life,
like farming and knowing about the soil. You came into Manatech knowing that.
Sure, I did. Yes, well, I was born on a farm in South Australia, and we moved to Armidale in New South Wales when I was 9. My father had stud sheep, and he grew some crops, mainly to feed the sheep, and he went into cattle as well. But it was in the 1960s, late 1960s, I believe, he went to a sheep sale to buy a stud ram. And he met a man there who talked about organic farming, which was just really not heard about at that time. In the 1960s, it was very rare. And Dad thought it sounded interesting, so he came home and he decided to do a study with a friend, another friend from South Australia who'd moved to Armidale. And what they did was they planted a paddock, half with chemical fertilisers, because I must say Dad was right into using all chemical fertilisers. We used to have the aerial spraying of superphosphate, and Dad was quite famous because he was ahead of his time with that. You know, the pilot of the plane used to say it was so easy to see Dad's place because it was the greenest. It stood out, you know, it was easy to superphosphate. So anyway, they decided to plant this paddock half with superphosphate and half with a mineral fertiliser, which was organic. And the superphosphate part grew very high, and the mineral fertiliser part of the paddock only grew half as high. So Dad and his friend thought, well, blow this organic thing. This is ridiculous. You know, look at the difference. And this is a very relevant point to what we're going to talk about today. And he let the sheep in, and then guess what? The sheep ate the mineral fertiliser side, not the other side. And the moral of this story is that it's very sad that sheep are smarter than human beings. No,
that's a good start.
I don't mean that. I don't mean that. But the difference with sheep and us is they still follow their instincts. And unfortunately, I think that's something we've been taught out of. We still have instincts, but we've been programmed out of knowing what's always good for us. But anyway, that was just where I wanted to go because that's relevant today. And so it went on. And I don't remember anything much after that, except, you know, I got married, I had children. When I was pregnant, just after my first child, I got onto a lady called, what was her name? I've forgotten her name now, but she wrote a book called Let's Have Healthy Children, or How to Have Healthy Children. And that became my Bible. And I started learning about nutrition and studying and taking some supplements, and all sorts of things happened. I remember when I was pregnant with my second son in Sydney, Cameron, at the end of my pregnancy, it was summer, he was due on New Year's Day, and my ankles were swelling up. It hadn't happened with Ashley, and he'd been born in summer in Sydney the year before, but it happened with Cameron. So I went to the specialist. You had to go to specialists back then in Sydney, and he said, oh, it's summer, you're pregnant, it's hot, it's normal. And I thought, what? So I went home and studied my book, and it said it was caused, fluid in pregnancy or often inflammation like that is caused by a lack of B6. So I went and bought some B6, started taking it more till I had an effect. It only took 2 days and the swelling all went down. You know, and this is still a common thing in pregnancy. Women take their rings off quite often, you know, because their fingers swell and different things. But that really had a profound effect on me, and it was probably the beginning of my disrespect to some extent for the medical world. But anyway, we won't go there. And so it went on, and I just became more and more interested. I did a naturopathic course in Brisbane after we'd moved to Queensland, you know, when the kids were teenagers. I was homeschooling them as well. And then I got divorced, and in 1952, no, not 52, when I was 52.
You're 150 years old.
Sorry, I was only 2 in 1952. When I was 52, that's when or just before, I joined Manatech in 2002. And I just was blown away, a bit like you, Sharon. You know, I think most people know my story. I was at a market with a girl in a wheelchair with red curly hair. And a man ran after me and telling me how the food had gone to pot, and I already knew that. You know, I thought I knew everything, as we all tend to do, relating back to the story of the sheep. And so I didn't really, you know, take much notice, but he was quite good looking, so I decided I'd ring him back. But he gave me a tape of Dr. Omelchuk, and when I listened to that, I just thought, if this is half true, I wanted to know more. And yeah, the rest is history. And I started out on a mission to save the world, really, which was fraught with lots of frustration, as you well understand, and most people on this call probably well understand, because as you said at the beginning, People just don't realise what's happened. And sadly, since 2002, it's accelerated. You know, the damage to our environment, the damage to our food has accelerated. But is that enough of my story? Can we get into it now, or did you want me to cover anything else?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I was just going to back you up. You know, as a nurse, I worked mostly in the critical care areas, which to some extent we still do. You know, if you're going to be in a car accident, you're not running to grab your Manitech. You want critical care type information. Absolutely. Or if the horse is bolted and you've got advanced heart disease and you're having issues with your heart, you want intensive care, right? Or emergency department. But in just about everything else in healthcare is pretty broken in my opinion, unless you have the funds to do an integrative doctor route or a naturopathic route in combination with everything. And I think that if anything you take away from this is just always question and do your own research. Question what we're being told, question the rules, and look after your own health. Take your power back into your own hands. That's the most empowering thing that you can learn from today.
I think that's absolutely right. Well, look, what I thought I'd really like to do today was talk about, you said about terrain, and terrain basically means soil. So we're going to talk about, the soil and our body, us as a soil too. But before we do that, I just feel it's really important to understand the difference between what Manitech offers and the allopathic medicine, which is Western medicine model. Just the difference, not to criticise it. I'm not here to do that. I'm just here to explain the difference. And I actually looked up the definition of allopathic. And I'm going to read it, make sure I read it right. Allopathic means treating symptoms and diseases using drugs, radiation, and/or surgery. So that's the definition basically of Western medicine. So essentially what it is, it's a method of fighting your body when something's actually going wrong. Drugs, surgery, it's treating, and I guess the word treatment is also a key word. It's about treating something that's already gone wrong in your body, as opposed to working out how to stop things going wrong in your body, which is more the nutrition aspect of things. And allo, even in allopathic, where the word came from, allo means other. I looked this up too, and it means to treat with something other than natural elements. So it's not a natural treatment. And I think this is something to really understand, that allopathic medicine is not really related to health. It's called the health industry, but it's about helping remove something that's gone wrong in your body or hurting you or disease. And it's so important in many cases, and I deal with many people who are on medication and absolutely need to be on medication for various reasons and in critical care, etc. But if you can work on the opposite of that, the actual health of your body, and this is where the soil has become the big issue. The soil and how our food has been grown is the big issue, as Sharon said at the beginning. And because I grew up on a farm, I learned so much about that. Because Dad became an organic farmer, I learned so much about that. He not only became organic on the property. I mean, one of the things I remember he did was he stopped drenching all the sheep and the cattle, because he learnt that if he rotated them, and they didn't spend a lot of time in the same paddock with all their droppings, etc., and moved them around to fresh grass all the time, which was more nutritious, they didn't need to be drenched. They didn't get worms. So there was lots of things that happened in my growing up before I even got into nutrition, I guess, that sort of pointed to this fact. But then Dad grew all our own vegetables too, as I'm doing also now. And part of that process is restoring the soil, because the strength of your plants, whatever you're growing, whether it's a beautiful rose garden or vegetables or a crop, can only be as good as the health of the soil or the terrain. So we'll just stick to the terrain of the soil for the moment. And because what moves the nutrients in the soil, if they even exist, into the plants, is worms, microbes, all the good bacteria in the soil. They actually transport the vitamins, the minerals, all the things we need to end up within our food to be healthy. It's those the living organisms under the soil. It's as big a story as the ocean, with what's living under the soil as what's living in the ocean. It's the same principle. And they transport everything into the plants. Now, when you use chemical fertilizers, like Dad was doing with the superphosphate, or you might go out and decide to use some Roundup. I don't care if I'm not supposed to say that. I just hate that product. It's just so bad. It's got glyphosate in it, and it causes massive, massive health problems to everyone. It's been proven over and over again in courts how bad it is, and it's still sitting in all the shops, and people still use it. So if you use these chemicals, you actually kill what's under the soil because they're chemicals. They're bad. And someone's saying they have a very old recording. Oh, right, yes, Pauline.
Marsha Smith.
Yeah, thanks, Pauline. Yes, I'm well aware of that. It's a very good article, good to read. It's a bit confusing when I see messages. I don't like it. I get muddled up.
That's okay.
Okay, so the chemicals, this is the biggest thing to understand. The chemicals, the pesticides, the herbicides destroy what's in the soil. So once you've destroyed what's in the soil, which has been done on a wide scale all over the world, with all the, monoculture around the world, all the farms that just grow one crop as well, year after year. Another big factor, of course, is resting the soil to let the soil recover and rebuild its nutrients. There's various crops that put nitrogen, and like clover that put nitrogen, and legumes do this too, back into the soil to make the soil healthy. So it's a whole process of keeping the soil healthy, the terrain, so that you get healthy plants. And this is what organic farmers work on, leaving the soil fallow, putting organic matter back in, where it be manure, compost, mushroom compost, mulch, lots of mulch, to break down and put nutrients back into the soil, because you're feeding the worms and feeding the microbes. So that makes the soil healthy, makes the plants healthy. And guess what? When plants are healthy, they're not as prone to pests. You don't need pesticides and herbicides when you have healthy plants. If the soil's not quite up to patch, you might get an occasional thing, but that can usually be fixed with some natural remedy as well. But what happened after the Second World War, basically, it was after 1945 it started, where, they had piles of stuff, the minerals and things that they made ammunition from, and they found green grass growing very well around it. And here's another industry, another thing we can make money out of. So it became a massive business, agribusiness, that started in America, spread to us and to all over the world, of using these chemicals to make everything grow higher, grow faster, but with less nutrition, and destroying the soil. And I remember back in 2003, 4, 5, when I was in Manatech, even back then, the figures from America were that the soil was 87% sterile. Sterile, because there's just no life in the soil. And this is what happens. And so the more you kill what's in the soil, the weaker the plants get, the more pesticides you need, and it just becomes a vicious circle. But the sad part is we're the ones on the end of that circle. We're in that circle because we eat the plants. And we're eating the chemicals, we're eating weak plants, and we need a certain amount of vitamins and minerals, antioxidants, fatty acids, glyconutrients. Even glyconutrients were in our food. We often think about that as a new discovery, but they're not a discovery of something that's been created. They're a discovery of something that used to be in our food. And they just aren't. We're lucky if we're getting glucose and galactose. And don't even get me started on what they've done to the milk by pasteurising it and homogenising it. We won't probably go there today, but it's really bad too. And anyway, I think I'll have a little spell, Sharon, and let you.
Well, I'm reflecting on what you're saying, and really, we're really being called to think for ourselves and question everything. You're going to probably hear that repeated today. but it's only taken a generation or two to have people forget all this information. It's foundational. From our grandparents would have known this, right? We took it for granted food was good. Like, I was born in a similar time to you, where they looked after the soil. And when I was growing up, there's earthworms everywhere in the garden. And I've never seen one since I've been, well, on this property, we have a lot of dirt. I've never seen an earthworm. It's interesting. So, and that's actually an emergency. And luckily, while we're having this unfolding, terrain and agricultural emergency, catastrophe, really, if you really do your research, there are solutions. So and that's why we're so lucky and happy to bring this information to you today. So beyond the farming and the chemicals, what else has changed for us that's so important for us to be able to have access to improving the terrain of our body or our cells?
Well, there's a number of things. It's like a two-sided problem, really. It's a double-edged sword. We've discussed a bit at length now that we need the nutrients out of the soil, and we can get into the products a bit more about that afterwards, how they compensate for that, if you wish. But the other problem is what it happens to our body when we take in these toxins and chemicals, and we are getting them from lots of places. We're not getting all our nutrition from our food. Seriously, the food supply, the amounts of vitamins and minerals and iron and calcium and magnesium, they've been low since the 1960s. It's been starting to drop. We're talking about 60 or 70 years now. And you can go and buy food, read the label and see what's in it, which is a good idea to do. Make sure there's no crickets in it or something like that. You can go and read labels, but it never tells you with your fruit and vegetables what your nutritional content is. You have no idea when you go and buy fruit and vegetables, what sort of nutrition content. And also what you don't know is what sort of toxic content. And this is the other major issue, because not only have you got things missing, but you've also got things that are added because of the sprays. You can't wash off the sprays. I used to try when I started learning about this, I'd wash my apples in detergent, because someone told me that would get rid of all of the chemicals. But they're inside. They're in the apples. They penetrate the fruit and vegetables, these sprays and fertilizers and pesticides and chemicals and glyphosate and all sorts of things. So you're actually eating these toxins, and now we get down to our body, the terrain of our body. Not only does it need all the right nutrients, but our immune systems are designed and our bodies to only recognize who's good and who's bad, very simply. And I know most of you listening to this call know this very well, but when you have anything synthetic or toxic that's not actually food come into your body, it creates an immune response. Your immune system is really struggling to get rid of it, to clean it up, to get it out of your body. But the levels of toxins we're exposed to now, not just from our food even, but from the air, from the water, I just still can't believe, as Sharon was saying, how many people still drink tap water with chlorine and fluoride in it. Fluoride is a nuclear waste. It causes brain damage, Alzheimer's, goodness knows what else. Chlorine is in there. It sounds like a good reason to protect us and to protect us from bad bacteria or anything in the water, but it also kills all the bacteria in us, including the good bacteria. So chlorine is, really bad. So we've got a lot of things coming into our bodies in various ways. And if you live in the city, you might be buying filtered water, but you're still having a shower in this chlorinated water unless you've got a filter on your whole house. So you even breathe in the chlorine in this way. Sounds very depressing. I don't like to sort of make this a depressing story, but I just feel we have to understand what's happening. So when our body has synthetic things come into our body, and this includes medication, we have to realise this, and it includes a lot of supplements on the market. You know, so it's a huge percentage. In the high 90% of supplements on the market have synthetic ingredients, which means they've been processed maybe from natural substances, but they're at the point where they're synthetic, so they're not recognised by the body as food. And again, it creates an immune response. It creates stress in the body. It creates a lot of free radicals that go around and cause more damage. So, yes, so there's some of the things that are coming against us. Always.
Yeah, so the bottom line is that our body and our health are suffering because of it, right? I mean, and you mentioned psychological stresses and other factors. So the loss of terrain, the increase of chemicals, the structure of our life, and I'll throw in health policy that's not always going down the right direction in my educated, well-educated perspective. Where we have to look after ourselves and bring the power back into our own hands. So let's introduce Manatech as a solution. Why, in your professional opinion, and I 100% agree with you, is Manatech the right choice for helping your body to rebuild that terrain?
Well, very, very simply because of the research that's been done. I mean, the discovery of glyconutrients, you know, initially, although they did have Plus before, the company that was there did have Plus as a product, phytosterols, before the discovery of glyconutrients, but that was just a major discovery. Back in the 1980s, it's so long ago, you know, what was actually missing out of the 8 glyconutrients that are well documented by other people, not just Manatech, as necessary for cellular communication. The 8 glyconutrients, out of those, we were lucky if we were getting 2 in our everyday diet. So that's sort of where it all started. And it was, I guess, this whole understanding of what was missing and what could be put back. And Manatech have just done so much research. You know, I remember, and I don't know if this is on topic, I think it is, but I remember when the antioxidant was developed, because when I first joined Manatech, we didn't have the AO product. We had Phytolo, which are phytonutrients, which was great, but we didn't have an antioxidant. And when they developed the antioxidant, which has 5 different antioxidants in it, and I'm sure you will understand, antioxidants are what protect our cells from free radical damage when we're stressed. Anyway, stressed by sickness and disease, emotion, divorce, sleeping in, any sort of stress. An argument causes more free radicals in our body, which attack our cells. So antioxidants protect our cells from that damage, which is the precursor to disease, of course, then, if the cells are damaged. Anyway, when they were testing for the antioxidant, green tea is one of the antioxidants. And I know many people believe green tea is a great antioxidant. Many people drink it. I don't like it personally, but many people drink green tea because they think it's a good antioxidant. And when the green tea arrived at Manatech to be tested, and they tested it, because this is the level they go to. Everything that comes in is tested for its viability and the fact that it is active, you know, that it's actually is what it says it is and has the right nutritional strength. And the green tea, there was no antioxidants when they tested it. And they contacted the people that they'd got the green tea from, and their answer was, oh, if we'd known you were going to test it, we would have sent you the good stuff. So anyway, they did, but it came vacuum packed and dry sealed to preserve it. And that's the only way. And this is another really big issue of preserving things, because if you're drinking green tea, you're probably not getting any antioxidants at all, because it's so fragile. And this is what makes Manatech so special. The antioxidants in the AO are so fragile and can be destroyed. You know, it's not a capsule you should break open, for instance. It doesn't taste nice anyway. But, you know, so many things have gone into producing the best quality product to make up for what's missing in the food. The studies have been done. And I know that the things I've seen in people's bodies over the years, it's just melodramatic what can happen. For instance, with the AO, if people have got a lot of stress on, and the last 3 years have been pretty stressful, you know, to say the least. And AO is a product that, you know, is excellent to take more of if you're under stress. But again, it's such a good quality product. You should never take more than one at a time. There's all these little nuances to understand. Because it's so good, you only need a certain amount of antioxidants in your blood at a time to do what's necessary. And, you know, very often people forget these things. So for those of us who are helping other people, these little things are important to know, because people forget, and they're not in the habit often of taking supplements, and they'll think, oh, I'll just take 2, that'll do it at breakfast time. And that's not a good plan with AO. It's not going to hurt you, but you're just wasting it because you only need a certain amount. So if people are under a lot of stress, I often recommend they take 1 each meal, maybe another one even before bed, because it'll help. It helps calm you down because it deals with the free radicals, which cause more stress. When your cells are being damaged, it creates more stress in your body. So Manatech has just gone above and beyond with understanding what our body needs. I mean, the Plus product, you know, that the technology of that is just incredible. You know, so many people have hormonal issues. I thought I was well when I started, but I found out I had something not so good going on in that inside of me in that menopause period, which I won't go into today. But the Plus changed my life, and it continues to. And to many people, because it helps balance up the hormones and give back again what we're not getting in our food. You know, we were supposed to be getting 50 to 80 milligrams of plant hormones in our diet. And as Dr. Nugent has taught us over and over, we're lucky if we get 1 to 3 milligrams in the modern Western diet. And that was the case 15 years ago. It's even worse now. So if we think of, and people don't, like Sharon has said a couple of times today, that people don't really understand. And hormones is just a massive thing. I mean, the immune system, yes, they don't understand that, but the hormonal issue is just huge, because our hormones, we've got, you know, some 87 different hormones that regulate so many things in our body, from our hair to our skin to our moods, our memory, our energy, our happiness. But this whole moods and anxiety and, you know, just coping with life, especially, as I said, over the last 3 years, you know, just coping. Our hormones are huge. And when we're stressed, we've talked about the AO helping with the free radicals, but it also taxes our hormone levels. You know, we might be pumping out adrenaline if we're afraid, or cortisol goes up, you know, different hormones go up. And if you're not getting in your food, you know, this is such basic information that we're not taught, because the allopathic method has become, that's the main thing wrong. It's become what the go-to, instead of people learning what their body really needs. You know, the doctors become the go-to instead of fixing what's wrong by providing what the body needs. So if you burn up a lot of adrenaline, or cortisol is way up, or various other hormones, and you're not getting in your food what you need to make more, because you make your hormones every day. You're not just born with them and that's it. You have to keep making them. Your body's constantly being recreated. You know, you're making some 50 million new cells every second. We're constantly being created. So if you're not getting it in your food, you can't balance your hormones up. And so some stay low, some stay high, out of whack, and people have arguments and a lot of unhappiness, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of sadness, you know, and it makes me sad that people are suffering unnecessarily because they don't realise why. They don't even realise there is a reason. They just think, oh, this is my lot in life, you know. And this is why I've been so passionate about Manatech for so long. You know, I just want to help people be happy, be better, be healthy, be strong, live longer. You know, how many years are people losing of their lives that they could have had because of ill health? And as I said at the beginning, you know, the allopathic method only treats symptoms to make you feel more comfortable, which is, you know, a short-term thing. But of course, all those things are synthetic as well. So they, again, create more damage. And one of the things I do now, I've learnt different ways to try and help people understand this over the years, but I suggest when people are on medication, Have you Googled it to see what the side effects are? This is a good thing to do, because sometimes, you know, I've Googled various things and the side effects are the same as the problem. So people aren't even going to be sure if they're getting better. So, you know, it's a personal choice. You know, it's your body and your choice, which is a bit of a key phrase, but anyway. So it's always good to do some research and trust your own, get back to being instinctive like the sheep.
Mm.
You know, this is so important.
And Karen, how would you position, like you've covered the plots, the help assistant for hormones and the antioxidants for, you know, free radicals and stress and living in a modern world. What about the vitamins and minerals?
Well, that's another huge issue. Thanks, Sharon. Yes. Vitamins are very, very deficient in our fruit and vegetables because of all the things I talked about before. Your vitamins and your minerals are majors that come up from the soil into the plants. But when it comes to minerals, that's an even bigger issue in a way. You need both, and you can't absorb, I'll get it straight, you can't absorb minerals without the right vitamins, but you can absorb anyway, I won't even try till I can't remember which is which. But the minerals in our soil is a major, major issue. So for many, many years now, longer than I've been in Manatech, magnesium and selenium, two, for example, have been missing from the New Zealand and Australian soil. They don't exist in the soil. Whether they can be recovered over time, I mean, a lot of our minerals just come from rocks breaking down, but that takes a very long time. And because of the excessive farming, you know, all the farming country, it's just, they've just farmed the minerals out of the soil. So they're not even there a lot of the time, which is why supplementing, and the vitamins are deficient because of the way the soil's been treated as well. Unless you're growing everything yourself in perfect soil, you can't get all the vitamins and minerals or the antioxidants or anything in your diet. It's just not possible. And over time, it takes time for the body to degenerate, and it takes time for the body to get well, which is another very important thing to understand when you start supplementing. Because again, people are so programmed into this paradigm with the allopathic method of quick results. You know, take a couple of Panadol and your headache goes away. So when you're introducing supplementation as a way of restoring health and making a healthier body, it doesn't work like a drug. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. Old cells will probably have to die. Some may not be resurrectable. And you have to create, you know, new healthier cells. So it takes time. But this mineral depletion in the soil, I remember talking to a cattle farmer some years ago in New South Wales, and he had licks of selenium for the cattle. He said they don't like it. It doesn't taste very nice, but they know they need it. Again, smarter. Hello.
Sheep and cows,
said,
right?
I know. And he said it makes all the difference to their coat. But, you know, the cows aren't proud about their coat. So they don't just take it because it makes all the difference to their coat. They take it because they know their body needs it.
That's too funny.
So,
what about glycans, Karen?
Well,
really criminally unrecognized in healthcare.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And sadly, still denigrated in some areas, which is, you know, very sad. One of the hardest things I've had to deal with in my years with Manatech is people are having great results and have gone to the doctor and been told to stop taking them, which is, even though they've had dramatically good results, even though the evidence is there that their health has improved. I could tell you some incredible stories.
Yeah, me too.
But anyway, glycans, such an important story, because these are the biological sugars that should be plentiful in our food. Wheat was one of the major sources of mannose. Mannose is a glyconutrient, one of the most important glyconutrients we need. It's a foundational one to build the cell receptors on the outside of every single cell in your body so that your cells can transmit information. You know, whenever I start talking to anyone, you know, I say, have you ever thought about how your cells transmit information? How does anything know where to go? When you eat food, how does anything know where to go? How does your body know to use vitamin C or calcium or magnesium or whatever it might need? How does your immune system know who's good and who's bad? How does anything happen in your body? Everything. The transport of your hormones around your body depends on the cell receptors on the outside of every single cell, all these little hairy tentacles like a forest. And they're made up of 8 specific biological sugars. And as I said before, we're very lucky to get 2, if we do, in our bodies, in our modern Western diet. So the glyconutrients that Manatech have evolved over time, it's just a massive story, how they've found them in all different food sources, the ones that we need, and put it into a product that's patented. We had a patent on it here in Australia before America, actually. So it's actually a patented food. No one else can put those 8 biological sugars together and market them. And some people think that's selfish, but I don't, because we know, again, we're getting the quality. You know, that's the assurance that we're getting the quality. And again, they source the perfect ingredients like they did with the AO and the green tea, the phytosterols, with everything. You know, it's just an incredible place. Sorry?
And test them, like you said. I'm breaking up, am I?
I couldn't understand you. It is it's a bit blurry. What was that you said?
And they test them.
And they test them, absolutely, constantly. You know, every supply that they've ever made, they keep and they go back and test. You know, because it's a food product, they have expiry dates on them, but I know for a fact that's, you know, they don't usually expire because Manatech have gone back and tested them years later and they're still viable. You know, the quality of this company is unsurpassed. And I truly don't believe there's another company that has the quality of the products we have. They are the best in the world, I have no doubt. Have I said enough about the glyconutrients? Did you want me to go into any more? The immune system, of course, yes. Did you want me to
the only thing, I hope you can hear me. I've got teenagers on the internet here. I think they're not allowed to share between 9 and 10 on Saturdays.
Okay.
One thing I want to highlight, and this is, again, I'm feeling really strong about it, but if you really look around in our world right now, what's not being shouted at the top of the rooftops and on the front of every magazine, take a look at that and listen to people who really care about you, because right now in healthcare, we have to research for ourselves and make our own informed decisions and be very, very discerning. And nutritional glycan should be the foundation of every single person's well-being and health protocol. And diet, basically, it's a dietary choice, you know, to get these. If they're missing, if new cells are being made without these, then they're not going to be complete cells. That's the very basic foundation of it. So and I think it really is time to wake up for what's being blocked in healthcare education and advice to everyday citizens who have the right to full health and well-being. I want to say something about this. That I was on a call recently and I heard about an international meeting of doctors, and they're at there's 300 doctors and they're being educated about nutritional glycans and about this science and, you know, the protocol in this country internationally. So if you look globally, we're all humans. You know, we have the same base, you know, there might be subtle genetic variations of needs, but we all need foundational nutrition. But you go across a border and the rules are different and the laws are different and the advice is different. When you look at the science and you look at cellular health, we're all basically the same. In this country, in our country, we're not allowed to say, the law says that we can't tell you I had a benefit from this product. The company can be penalized. We can be individually penalized. I can't tell a friend that I took X Manatech product and I had Y result and I'm so happy, you know, it saved my life or it changed my quality of life or whatever. That's illegal here. In another country, same human beings, they can be at 300 doctors at a meeting, learning about this, developing a protocol that has been tested in another country, that you get your basic blood work when you start on the program, and not making this up, 90-day at a certain interval, it's retested. And when people see the benefits in their cellular health, they never stop. Now that's forbidden in this country. And that's the truth. It's not false science. It's not marketing. It's real science and real cellular results. If people knew what we had, they would never stop taking it a day in their life.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, look, if people want to understand some of this history and why it's gone awry, I mean, you can go back and look at the beginning of Big Pharma from back in the early 1900s, you know, and the homeopaths, you know, all the natural forms of looking after our bodies. It's been attacked for over 100 years now. And it's really very interesting history and something we need to understand. And I'm sorry to say, but this commercial agriculture is getting bigger and more insidious. I mean, other things that I haven't mentioned is things like green harvesting, of course. You know, crops are picked before they're ripe when a lot of the nutrients pass in that last 48 hours. So that's another thing. By growing food yourself or taking your supplements, you can counteract that. But there's just so many things that aren't going well. And a lot of things shipped from a long distance, so there's long storage time. You know, you can buy apples that have been picked 2 years previously, you know, and eggs as well. You know, it's just we have to understand our world is not being run a lot of the time by benevolent people who care about our health, because there's more money in us being sick. There, I've said it. So it becomes a real personal responsibility for ourselves, our children, and our future to understand what we need. And I just believe the Manatech products are just incredible. I know they are. I've seen the results not only in my own body, but in other people's bodies. I've seen changes, and, you know, I really congratulate the people I've helped to taken the time and readjusted their thinking and readjusted what they buy, you know. And another thing is what goes into our skin. This is another really relevant point to cover, Sharon, because so many commercial products that we put on our skin, including makeup or skin lotions or tanning lotions, all these things have got lots of chemicals in them, and they go into your skin. That's how nicotine works, remember? It's absorbed into the skin to help people give up smoking. So everything you put on your skin goes into your body. And there's synthetics, there's some dreadful things in a lot of skin products. And I know they feel nice and they smell nice. Perfumes, hand sanitizers, hormone disruptors. You know, there's just so many things we're confronted with. And I'm an avid advocate of the Manatech skincare. I use Youth, Emprozone, and the cleanser and the moisturizer exclusively. You know,
if we were standing in a crowd, Karen, most people wouldn't know I'm in my late 60s and you're in your early 70s. Most people would never. Oh, I'm breaking up again. Sorry. Most people wouldn't know that I'm in my late 60s and you're in your early 70s if we were standing in a crowd of people. And this
is true.
And
I'm not growing yet. It's actually still a bit red, my hair, and I don't dye it.
And that's skincare and nutrition for 20 years, like improving our cellular nutrition for over 20 years now.
Yep. Well, the Emprozone is a great body lotion, Pauline Hancock. I just happened to see that. I just love the Emprozone. I use it all over my body. I think it's a wonderful product. And, you know, I just tell this little story. I had a massively serious spider bite about 6 or 7 years ago. Huge thing on my leg. It was like this big, seriously. It was the most revolting looking thing you could see. And I didn't go to the doctor. I'm not suggesting people don't go to the doctor, but I didn't, you know. I just took lots of supplements. And this is another thing to understand: when something does go wrong, maybe you get a cold, or you get a cold sore, or any little thing pops up and you're taking the products. And sometimes people will think, well, I'm taking these products, so why did that happen? Well, it probably happened because you've had some extra stress. A few things could have happened in your life. You know, our life is not the same every day. And something could have happened. I don't know. You could have planted a whole garden of plants and the bandicoots came and dug them all up, like has happened to me a few times. You know, I'm being silly, but, you know, stresses happen all the time, and you just might feel a bit cranky one day. And it's a clue. If we can understand what our products are doing, it's a clue. Your hormone levels are a bit down. Take a couple of extra plus. If you're having trouble sleeping, it's probably because your hormone levels are down. You've probably had a bit of extra stress or a few things go in, and your hormone levels, maybe you're taking 3 or 4 plus a day. Maybe you need 5 or 6 for a few days to build them back up again.
Yeah.
Whatever, you know, so it's understanding what your products can do to keep you balanced or keep you in homeostasis, as they say, a nice balance. Very, very powerful, you know. It's just powerful to know what they do, but this is what we try and help people understand. And, you know, I still do regular calls with lots of my clients because they forget these things.
Yeah.
They forget, and people have to be reminded a lot of the time. Like I said before, they take 2 AO at a time, or they, you know, haven't been consistent. So people need help.
Yeah.
They need reprogramming and understanding.
We've been so educated that we're powerless in this situation of our relationship with our body and health. And we're educated. I was educated, and I believed it for all of my career, that we go somewhere else and we hand our power to that person to advise us. And what the allopathic stuff is a Band-Aid, right? Do we need Band-Aids sometimes? Absolutely. But there's so much power we can take into our own hands using with this technology, and you may need more. So we're not saying this cures anything, that we're not saying this will take some of the labels that you might get from a doctor that we need to go to sometimes. But I know for myself personally that even with the few labels I've had, compared to my peers with the same labels, with my access to these nutrients, my journey through that label and long-term is completely different. It's a different picture to the people around me with the same label. And everybody has that same power to make that choice. And, you know, trust yourself, do your research, make your relationship with your doctor a co-power one where you both, you know, you take the best of what you need from your doctor and make your own choices on top of that. You know, and you know, I just was thinking about my dad too, because, you know, with all his understanding of organic farming, you know, they grew all their own food, their own meat, everything, and then they retired to the Sunshine Coast when they were about the age I am now, actually, in their early 70s. And while Dad had a garden at the Sunshine Coast, it was a problem because there were no bees. There were no bees around because of all the local people, you know, people using pesticides and chemicals. So Dad used to go around with a cotton bud, pollinating the plants himself, getting the pollen off, and he grew a lot of things, but it just wasn't the same. You know, the quality of the soil wasn't as good as what he had on the farm, and, you know, he was in a built-up area, lots of different things. But when Manatech, and Mum found out she had lots of things wrong with her, you know, 72 she was actually, 73, 72 or 73. And suddenly things were going wrong. You know, it wasn't a coincidence off the farm, you know, not getting all the goodness out of their food. And they did take another range of supplements, I will hasten to add, which remain nameless. So Dad read a lot of the information. I said, this is what Mum needs. Dad read a lot of the information, and he could understand it because he understood the terrain principle. Yeah. And he was all keen for Mum to get started, but Mum thought she'd been taking supplements forever and she'd still had got these things gone wrong. So, you know, why would this be any different? But anyway, long story short, Mum started, and many people on this call knew Mum and Dad. And, you know, they did so well, you know, they just did so well. But, you know, Dad's attitude, I still remember all he said, this is his insurance. This is my health insurance. Taking, you know, was never too much to spend on the Manatech products. This is my health insurance. And that was a good way to look at it. And I think in this day and age, you know, that's very relevant still. And I think keeping a good stock up, if you possibly can, I think it's a priority. Yeah, 3 months supply ahead right now with world situations. That's what I'm telling everybody. You need to have 3 months supply. Yep.
get that supply up if you can. You know, I just love the loyalty program. I think it's the best, one of the best. The power seller bonus and the loyalty program are the two best things Manatech ever did. Yeah. No, not the best things. The products are the best things, but you know, because it's such a great way to help people, you know, keep up enough, you know, by getting them through that first 3 months. You know, I just keep encouraging them in that 3 months. I found the loyalty program just a great help to encourage people to hang in that first 3 months, because then they're going to get 20% on everything they've spent. And they can, you know, if they really can't manage it, they can reduce their order and get some loyalty products. But, you know, in that 3 months, I'm really training them and educating them, and hopefully they'll be able to buy a little more so they can get, you know, better results by getting a bit more product, taking a bit more Ambritose, which I feel is really important for people.
Yeah.
To be able to take more Ambritose, because what we have to remember is the amounts on the labels are a maintenance amount, basically, for a young, healthy person. And for a start, I don't think there's many of those around, young, healthy people, I mean. You know,
no, it's not funny. I shouldn't.
I know. It's just, so a maintenance amount is not always going to be enough to protect us. Remembering this time factor of things happening slowly, you know. People could say, I've been taking this for years and this still went wrong. Well, you know, now's the time to take a bit more. Give your body the power, you know. We have the power by what we take.
Absolutely. Karen, that's a good point. Is there anything else you'd like to leave people with who are listening to this? It's been more a fireside chat on the terrain model, I think, which is, it's the foundation of why we're important.
Yeah. Well, I just think keep learning. I think you just need to keep learning, you know, especially if you're helping other people with these products, is understanding the difference between the allopathic and the terrain model. I think this is a really important thing to understand, and also understand that no one's looking after our health out there except us. It's down to you personally and the people we help to re-educate them gently, kindly, subtly, help them stay within their budgets. You know, pushing to need more when they can't afford it only causes them more stress. So you need to be very tactful and understanding of where people are at. The last thing we want to do is create more pressure for them. And but just keep learning. Don't think you just know everything about everything. You know, I just think that's the greatest thing in life. Keep learning. Go back and study what happened and how Big Pharma came into place. It's a very interesting story.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, even for one other point I want to leave people with is that, you know, and you may require, say, or you may have, I have a lot of naturopath colleagues in an area of my life. And yes, sometimes we need targeted high dose of certain things if things have gone out of balance for a long time. But without the foundation of what we're talking today, the nutritional foundation that's not in food, that we can get easily through Manatech, high quality, you don't have to do the science, you don't have to prepare it, you just trust it because it works. You can then, doesn't matter what a naturopath does as well, naturopath or doctors, is enhance the outcome of any intervention. And so we really need this, like, you know, it's now proven that we've been exposed to sort of weaponized pathogens, weaponized viruses, and it's no more important time right now than to really take your health into your own hands, and you can feel safe with Manatech. And God bless you, Karen.
God bless you too, Sharon, and everybody on the call. What you're doing is very important.
It is. And I know it's good to just back yourself up with a refresh on education like this sometimes, because it's noisy space out there in the health world, and we have to stay strong and stay tall. Love you all. See you next week with more Dr. Nugent. If you liked this, come back.
Okay.
See you guys.
Everybody.
Thanks all. Bye.